Friends, in just a few moments, we will begin our service. Just a gentle reminder, if anybody has a cell phone, please take a moment to turn it on silent. Officiating our service today is Cantor Stephen Storr.
אשת חיל מי ימצא ורחוק מפנינים מכרע פתח בלב בלב ושאלה לא יחזר גמלה תותו ולא רע כל ימי חייה קמו בניה וישרוה בעלה ויחללה רבות בנות עשו חיל ויטלית על כלונה שקר החן והבל היופי אישה יראת אדוני היא תתהלל תנו לה מפרי ידיה V'halleluha v'sharim ma'aseha. At sacred moments, at times like this, we often begin with the book of Psalms to choose passages from, to help those who are mourning to be comforted, we hope, by these words. And this specific psalm that I chose to begin is actually not a psalm, it's from the book of Proverbs. And it is the Eshet Chayil, the woman of valor. How precious is a woman of valor. Her worth far beyond rubies. Her husband had put all of his confidence in her, and thus he lacked no good thing. She gave only good and never bad to him all of the days of their lives. She opens her hand to the needy. She extended her hand out to the poor. She was clothed in strength and in splendor. And she looked, this is ever so poignant because this is what I have found out about Ella. She looked to the future cheerfully, with optimism and with hope. She opened her mouth and there was always wisdom. She oversaw the activities of your house, never ate the bread of idleness, and thus today her children come forward to bless her. And her husband always had praise for her. Many women have done superbly in their lifetimes, but Ella, for this family, you have surpassed them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a God-revering woman, a woman who walks in the paths of righteous acts, is much to be praised. We'll extol her for the fruit of her hand, and wherever people gather, her deeds will always be spoken. Ecclesiastes offers other readings. This is a reading of realism. L'kol zaman ve'et locho chefetz tachat hashemayim. There's a time for every purpose under the heavens. There's a time to be born, and as we know, there's also a time to die. There are times for laughing and dancing, and times for sitting and crying. A time to plant and a time to harvest, a time for war, and how we all pray for times for peace to be showered upon our earth. Today is the day of mourning, which is complex, even when someone lives a long and blessed life. The earlier part of her life, maybe not as blessed as we will hear, but nonetheless, she had family, parents she loved, siblings she loved. So it was blessed, even though the truth of the atrocities that took place in Eastern Europe did occur within her lifetime, of course, as many of you know. But I hope that her presence will always be more profound than her absence shall be. Her presence will always remain within you. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, בנוטה שירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי ישובב, ינחני במעלה צדק למען שמו. גם כי ילך בגץ המוות, לא יירא רע כי אתה עמדי. שבתך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי. דשנת ושמן ראשי כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי. ושבתי בבית אדוני ליורך ימים. I would believe within the pamphlets that the chapel provided for you, there might be a rendering of the 23rd Psalm. And if I could get you to participate with me, that would be lovely to have your voices added to the service. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down and he leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, and my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall. Thank you so much. Tradition guides us to comfort mourners with a standard statement which begins, Hamakom yenachem etchem. May the one who dwells within the heavens offer you comfort from above, along with all others in our land who mourn days of trauma and sadness, or who have lost a loved one. God is defined as a place, the word hamakom, defined as that place above, or the one who dwells within that place. But today, as we will lay to peace a woman who survived the Holocaust, as did my father, I offer that the word makom, place, is not God, but what will become her eternal place in the cemetery in just a while. Offering that a cemetery shall be a place of peace and comfort is somewhat oxymoronic, but allow me this. It should be a place of comfort for you, a place where you can come and find serenity, knowing that Ella has had a respectful space along her dear Leon, a place that is in a pasture of green grass. How many hundreds of thousands or more Jews and others who witnessed and struggled through the Shoah had the honor of being laid to rest so respectfully in a soft-bedded casket and honored with words of tribute on their final day, words of love as we bid them farewell. Rarely did they get that opportunity. So her place, Ella's her makom, should forever remind the family of the victorious, long life that she lived and the family she birthed and how she nurtured you and the generations that she inspired, the legacy that she left behind. When you visit that cemetery over the years to come, I hope it does bring you comfort knowing that she really did it all. She did it all, and she was laid to rest with a beautiful tribute today of prayer and eulogy. She was, as many of you may very well know, the beloved wife of Leon, loving mother, of course, to Flo and Peter, Faye, and Richard of sweet memory, and Joe and Michelle. Proud grandmother of Doug and Liza, Michael and Davina, Kevin, Rebecca and Mark, Brandon and Danielle, Gregory, Molly and Michael, Jamie and Josh, and 12 great-grandchildren. Sister, of course, to the late Mordechai and Fela, and Aaron and Esther as well, of blessed memory. Some family has a an opportunity or wish to have the opportunity, of course, you will have it now, to come and speak. So I think, Peter, you'll be first, and then we'll be followed by her grandson, Michael.
Thank you, Cantor. On behalf of the family, thank you for your presence, the warmth that you exude from this room, which we all are so appreciative of as we remember an amazing lady, an outstanding human being, a person who has guided us in so many different ways through life. And it's remarkable how she herself lost her parents so early, and yet as Flo and Faye and Joey's mom, she knew what to do. She was a great mother and a great grandma and a great great-grandma. So thank you for sharing in this service, in remembering her and all that she has done for all of us. And I want to, before I go on, I just want to also acknowledge the caregivers. These last few years have been difficult for Ella. She struggled physically, and without our caregivers, well, I don't know what would have happened, but they nurtured her, they loved her, and gosh, that's a tough job. And they did it with so much love and compassion. And Tess, thank you. She was with Ella for 6 years. She was with her, with Leon when he passed, and then all the years since then. So she has been a godsend, and we so appreciate everything that she has done. As Cantor alluded to, in 1951, Ella and Leon made the trip to Chicago after Nazi Germany, after the ghettos, after the concentration camps, after the displaced person camps that they lived in for 6 years, about. And they made it here in 1951 with Flo, who was 5.5, Faye, who was 2, and she was pregnant with Joey when they arrived here. No language. They didn't know any language. They learned it. They went to school. They didn't have a dime, but they worked hard. They worked really hard, and they made a life for themselves, for their family. Kids all were bar and bat mitzvah. They all went to college. They got married. And they had kids. They never thought they would hear the words Grandma and Grandpa, but they did. They heard those words from their grandchildren, and then from their great-grandchildren. There are 33 of us, when you count the spouses and the extended family, 33. What a legacy. So thank you, Leon. Thank you, Ella. You were great role models for all of us. And here we are to continue all that you have set forward for us to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Dad. That was beautiful. So, I am Ella and Leon's oldest grandson. And by virtue of that, I'd like to say that I was Grandma's favorite. Her best birthday gift, I mean, she would always, she was always so excited when I visited her, her knowledge of my life and everything I was up to. The many dates we had at Cheesecake Factory over the years, she always had her famous cookies ready for me and a helping of her legendary chicken soup. Sometimes I even got kreplach with the chicken soup. How could I not be her favorite? Of course, Grandma gave the same love and attention to all of her grandchildren. We all felt like we were her favorites, even our spouses. They felt like that love and affection all the time. And our children, her great-grandchildren, they all felt that love. Our kids are so lucky to be able to forge a strong bond, to have been able to forge a strong bond with Grandma. The amazing thing about that is they are aware how lucky they are, and that they had this opportunity to know and love such a beautiful person. Most kids, if they're lucky, they're going to have a loving grandma and grandpa. I was lucky to have mine in my life for over 50 years. However, she was so much more than just a grandma. Grandma was a fixture in all of our lives, especially Mom, Aunt Faye, and Uncle Joe's. They all idolized her. You could see it in the way they spent so much time with her, not only in these final years, but even when I was a kid, the many trips to their place at Richmond, the trips to Florida, and the family car rides to Denver, to college visits. Grandma and Grandpa were always a part of our lives. Grandma was a role model too. Her cooking ability was unrivaled. Her energy, her perseverance, her love was something we all benefited from and we all continue to try to emulate. And she was a survivor. She was most unique in that. And her strength is why we are all here today. All of our personal identities have been forged by our pride, our awe, our respect for our matriarch, Ella Krzetowski, as well as our patriarch, Leon Krzetowski. The last few years have been tough, especially for my mom, my Aunt Faye, and Uncle Joe. Your approach to Grandma and Grandpa before has been nothing short of what your parents would have expected, and you are inspirations to all of us, for your kids and your grandchildren. But please rest assured that Grandma is with Grandpa and the rest of our family that she has missed for so long. So please take some solace in that. I've never understood fully what it means to how a memory may be a blessing. But now I fully realize that and what that means. I love you, Grandma. You will be missed, but we are all blessed with your memory. Thank you.
While her early life was challenging and literally life-threatening, her adult life was one filled with optimism, happiness, positivity, and love. Thus, today is a day when tears should be for marking her absence, but more so for her fortitude, tears of joy and pride regarding her spirit of hope. So allow me to suggest that today is an elebration. A woman who you said to me saw the worst in humanity and yet was always able to see the good within humanity. Her attitude expressed as a mother to you, rather than one as a survivor or a victim, allowed the three of you to see the best in people as well and approach life with an unabashed happiness. You all agreed she was our savior in that way, and she possessed an intuitive instinct regarding people in general and always giving people the benefit of the doubt. Allow me to offer that since Ella was born in 1925 era, Otto Rohwetter put out the first loaf of bread, sliced bread and packaged, which means that in 1928, when he put out that item, that made Ella the best thing since before, sliced bread. Most of you know her history as she shared it with you, but she shared it as well with Steven Spielberg, several museums, libraries, and many others. She also spoke to children and students about her history, sharing with them the realities of the atrocities during that time, but always leaving them with a positive sense of hope, you said, by noting, despite it all, realize, I am here. Born in Lodz, the youngest of 4 siblings, she was 14 when the Nazis made themselves known to her and the people of her region. It was in Lodz, the camp, that both she and Leon would finally come to be together. Family lore is that Leon had to work hard to get Ella to like him. Ella had shared with me at the time of Leon's funeral that she and 2 of her friends would eventually come to not only be liberated by the forces, but in her words, they were all saved by Leon. He had attended to their needs and would bring them fruits and bread and eggs. From day one, he was and always remained a mensch, she said. Their 71 loving years together are testimony to a devotion to one another. Coming over to America with 2 children and a stowaway was a difficult journey. Once they got here, they made every effort to be productive citizens and worked hard, as you heard, to learn the language, going to night school to accomplish that goal. They wanted to be accepted here, not just viewed as greeners, as well to be able to assist their children in learning the language so they could be able to learn just as well as the children that would be born here. Ella tried not to imbue her children with the contents of her nightmares and kept, if I may, still about much of it until you said the experiences of Eastern Europe were given a label, Holocaust. And once it was identified, she felt if she had a reason to explain aspects of what had happened to them. The doors to her home were always open to family, and she opened them as well to family yet to come into the country. You noted that after a few years in the States, after she and your father had received their citizenship, they hurriedly worked to bring over other family, I think her uncle. And once he came, he brought his wife over, and thus the family grew. Once her uncle and her aunt had found a place to live, not having very much money to make purchases, Ella and Leon gave their one and only couch to their relatives so as to make their home a bit more comfy. Thus, she wasn't the only kind of person who would give the shirt off her back to anybody but the couch from under her tuchus as well. That manner of kindness was imbued into her by her parents, you taught me, Benjamin and Fega. Ella was young, and at that time her mother would direct her to take food to her grandmother's house, so she would always have a nourishing lunch each day, solidifying a life lesson into her mind, or into your minds, that it's not what you have in life, but it's what you give. And give she did. As an adult, she joined several charitable organizations such as ORT, Hadassah, Na'amat, which also worked to bring Russian Olim over to the United States. She also had volunteered for the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center, typing address labels for all of their mailings. She gave all that she had to you, her family as well, knitting and sewing items for you, and always filling your puppets with delicious, delicious food. The chemist, as you labeled her, went into the kitchen, her laboratory, and concocted the best of the best for you. Not with recipes from a book or even on her own scribbled recipe papers, but just simply from her head, you said. When there were times to go out for meals, Brandon recalled to me going out to lunch with Grandma. He wrote, "As I got older and I had a license to drive, I was able to have my own lunch dates with Grandma. Whether it was going to the bagel or, Cheesecake Factory or somewhere else, it was always a joy and always a special time. But it was primarily her food that got his olfactory senses tingling. He wrote once again about her legendary gefilte fish, and as we've heard, referred to, her beloved cookies. He continues, as the saying on the wall of our kitchen goes, my grandma is the best by far because she fills the cookie jar. Right? Her children, Flo, Joe, Faye, also recalled her magical touch when preparing these items at home. A bissel of this, shitterina zoy, a sprinkle here, a dash there, homemade pickles and kreplach and gefilte fish whose aroma wafted down the hall of the house and out through the windows onto the streets. To know when the recipe was perfect, you said that Ella would just taste it as she went along. Needed a little this, a little that. It was all by taste. And you mentioned as well tsimis and kishka and knisha and cholent and gala. She was a true balabusta, a hostess supreme and oh so zis. To you she was a Yiddish Mama. Es gibt nicht besser auf der Welt. A Yiddish Mama. Oi weh wird bitter, wenn sie fällt. In English, for the rest of us, a Yiddish Mama. I miss her more than ever now. My Yiddish Mama. I long to kiss that wrinkled brow. I long to hold her hand once more, as I did in days gone by, and beg her to forgive me for the things I did that made her cry. How few were her pleasures. She never cared for fashion styles. Well, maybe Ella did. Her jewels and her treasures, she found them in her baby's smiles. And I know that I owe what I am today to that wonderful lady so old and gray, to that wonderful Yiddish mama, the Yiddish mama of mine. You boasted of her gut neshama, her good soul. She loved you thoroughly and also shared her embrace of sweetness, you said, with your friends that would come to her home, and she would cup their punim in her hands. And you said that they weren't intimidated by her, they were charmed by her. Ella and Leon created a lovely, wonderful home for the family in which you grew up. You had mentioned to me that he had grown up on a farm, less so Ella. She didn't grow up in that way. But over time, he got his city girl to get her hands dirty and to help him working in their small little garden area in their backyard of tomatoes and cucumbers. And if you knew Ella well enough, you knew it was not easy for Leon to get her manicured fingernails dirty with such a task. Ella loved cooking, but she also liked looking good and always did so. Her hair and nails, you said, regularly done, and her outfits always impeccable, except when you'd catch her wearing her schlafrock, bathrobe. Even up into her later years, she was impacted by fashion and was always verputzt, often wearing her necklaces and her earrings that she loved. Not surprising, she would find employment in her lifetime in the world of clothing at Scher Brothers and Robert Hall. At Scher Brothers, it was a hard job, you said, because it was the night shift, often leaving home after dinner and not catching a bus home until the wee hours of the night. And when at Robert Hall, you shared that she would walk to and from work in all manner of seasonal weather. She worked there to help support the family, of course, and often traded in her paycheck to barter clothings for the children. She worked her butt off, is your quote, and she sacrificed a lot. Later in life, she and Leon would enjoy the benefit of having a place in Hollywood, Florida. They would earn a lovely group of friends there. From there, she would find people to play mahjong and cards and kibitz by the pool. And they would love to host dinners, often Shabbat dinners, Friday night, with her friends. As I mentioned Shabbat, allow me to note that Ella loved seeing and hearing Leon on the bima on Shabbat. He would read Torah, he would chant Haftarah, or lead parts of the service with what I'm told was a golden throat. You said she verily lit up every time she listened to him. And when it was that he passed these numbers of years ago, she verily deflated and lost a lot of her neshama, her spirit. They truly had relied on one another. They truly needed one another. And if we can take some comfort in it, we believe that they are now reunited with one another. She had also deeply relied on her brother Motek in her lifetime, who you said whose word was gospel to her. Even Leon kowtowed to Matuk's advice, which made you, Joe, happy, as it was he who was the defense attorney on your behalf in the domestic dispute of whether you should get a new bicycle or not. When Leon passed, combined with the era that we've experienced, the outbreak of COVID, Ella's spirit was affected notably because she yearned for people, for company, for friends, and interaction with others. And to help her in that realm, you found these wonderful people, Peter, that you mentioned, to come and live with her and care for her and love her, adding life to her days and days to her life. At home, Ella loved to watch her soap operas, Guiding Light, Edge of Night, Search for Tomorrow, amongst others. Someone commented that she liked watching this manner of daytime drama because it would get her lost in their tsuris and allow her to forget a little bit about her own. What made her forget a lot about her worries was spending time with the grandchildren. Brandon also shared with me these words. Sleepovers were times when I got to spend the day with Grandma and looked forward to that special time. Even everyday tasks like going to the bank with her seemed like a special treat. There was time for playing tons of games, particularly Rummikub or Rummikub, depends on your accent, bingo, and Park and Shop. And that game of Rummikub is a tradition that has been passed down through the generations. I also heard that she enjoyed patchkiing in the kitchen with the grandchildren, always trying to instill with you not only recipes and the idea of cooking together, but values and beliefs as you spend time with her on how she lived her life. You not only loved her, but revered her for her wisdom. Ella Krzetowski walked this earth for many years. She saw the remarkable advancements of technology and many engineering feats. We could name a lot. She lived in the lifetime of presidents, maybe all the way back to, I'm dating her then, so all the way back to somebody, until current years. And she also witnessed the worst of humanity, from the Shoah, even up to this point of October 7th in the land of Israel. She had great nachas, joy, completion, pleasure from her family and her own successes, and what a treat it was for her to come visit you, Faye, and Rick in Hawaii. How she was treated with the military guards you explained to me, and the staff made her feel like a macher, somebody really important. She was given a sword salute and presented with an abundance of Hawaiian leis, the necklace of flowers. It got to a point that they gave her so many flowers, you sort of implied. She said, "Genug, how many flowers does a woman need?" Right? Ella will be remembered for so many traits and inner and outer beauty. Brandon, you offered one other section of thought I wanted to share. You said she had resilience and strength. As a Holocaust survivor, she came to the U.S. with very little, 2 small children, and demonstrated the value of hard work and the pride and importance of being Jewish. She also transmitted to all of us the absoluteness of the importance of family. Oh, she loved simchas, as do most of us, but she always made it a point to attend every bar and bat mitzvah, every graduation, no matter the location, and she always showed support for her grandchildren. She possessed a great spirit and was always down for a good time, and she would always be on the dance floor. A song that I learned as maybe my earliest childhood lullaby was not a typical lullaby. In fact, it was a song about the displaced peoples of the wars in Eastern Europe called Viahin Zolach Gen. Tell me, where shall I go? They couldn't go back to their village. It was destroyed or taken over. They couldn't cross certain borders. They were hoping maybe to get to Jerusalem, Israel, or maybe the States. But they were just seeking some manner of home. Ella, in her journey, would go from Lodz in Poland, if I've gotten this right, maybe to Austria, and then Germany, and then ultimately the United States she was seeking as well. And through it all, she always kept her eye on the light, the shining light of the city of gold, Jerusalem, if you will. And in turn, she gave you all the happiness and promise that she could to each of you. I have no doubt that the impact she had on you will linger for the rest of your lives. Like many soap opera in her era, Ella was a guiding light to each of you, and she loved all her children. As we all have but one life to live, we must count the days of our lives and stay young and restless when it comes to being like Ella, who was a true participant in life. And as the world turns, each of us shall come to our final moments, but may we be blessed, as was she, that we find love, that we build a dynasty, if you will, over which she felled each and every day. In her own chronicled writings, Ella vibrantly recounted fascinating details of her history. To end the service, I want to quote from her brief biography of the war that you let me read the other day, in which Ella spoke these words about the Shoah. To talk about all of this is very painful to me. Some people can be talking about everything, but for me, it's a very painful thing. I really don't talk too much. Well, not like this, meaning the interview. If you're going to talk every time about this, life is not interesting because you're bringing out what was unhappy. In Washington, they have my thing in the museum, and here in Skokie, I didn't talk too much. So that's it. That's it. There's so much more to say about this woman, but unfortunately, with limited time and an unrealistic thought that we could explain the entirety of her life, that's it. Would you please stand for a memorial prayer? מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה, נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר, הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת אלה בת בנימין ופגה, שלחה לעולמו. בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתיריה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן. Dear God, thank you Thank you for guarding, protecting, and bringing Ella into our lives. Thank you for the family that she bore and the generations that she loved. Thank you for the example of optimism and trusting others even though she had witnessed the worst of the worst. You gave her strength, you gave her dignity. And today we pray that you help this family meet this grief of loss with courage. Help them to treasure what is their inheritance, the inheritance of a neshama that can only be imitated but not replicated. You are our refuge in these difficult times, dear God. Be a rock upon which this family may lean. And may this sweet, loved soul find perfect peace in your internal embrace as she is now embraced by the spirits of others as they gather in the Garden of Eden. May her soul be bound up in the bonds of life eternal. Amen.
Friends, you may be seated for just a moment. Friends, this concludes our service here at the chapel. Interment will take place at the family plot at Shalom Memorial Park. Upon return from the cemetery, the family will be sitting Shiva at the Golden Residence, 934 Wayne Avenue in Deerfield, following interment until 9 p.m. this evening, and tomorrow from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Memorial contributions in Ella's memory can be made to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum and to American Friends of Magen David Adom. That information, as well as the times, are available on the folder that you received on the way in. If you do not receive one, they are available on the way out. And for those of us who are joining on the live stream, that information is on the funeral home website. Procession to the cemetery will be forming just outside the chapel in the parking lot. If you're going in procession with the family, please make sure you obtain an orange funeral safety sticker to place on the inside windshield portion of your vehicle. For an additional measure of safety, please obtain a magnetic flag to place on the rooftop portion of your vehicle. While in procession, please make sure your bright hazard lights are on at all times. When going through any intersection, please use your horn liberally, and please try to avoid talking on any cell phone or any device while en route to the cemetery. The following family members have been honored to serve as pallbearers. When I call your name, if you could please rise and stand next to Ella's casket. Brandon, Greg, Mike, Doug, Kevin, and Mark. At this time, if I ask everyone to please rise as we escort the casket and the family from the chapel. Yeah.